Good afternoon, all members. Welcome to today's internal audit tool techniques session. Our speaker, Ms. Sana Madam, is available here. Friends, I am CSR Venkatramana, Council Member, Central Council Member of ICSI. Extend a warm welcome to all participants and our esteemed speaker, Ms. Sana. She is a Chartered Accountant and also Company Secretary. In this 16th webinar of Master Knowledge Series, Triple E 6.0 on the topic of internal audit, tools and technique. Friends, before we delve into the today's open house session, I would like to draw your attention towards a vital initiative of Government of India on the Corporate Mitra Scheme, an initiative aimed at creating a pool of trained certified para professionals to assist MSMEs in managing business operations and regulatory compliances. Friends, the registrations for Corporate Mitra scheme is already open for 15th July 2026 to 31st July. I request all the members to avail this benefit. Friends, we are also delighted to announce that the applications are open for the prestigious ICSI National Awards for Excellence in Corporate Governance for the year 2026. For further details about the award process and categorization, please visit ICSI website. The last day to submit will be 14th August 2026. For today's topic, friends, the internal audit is a prominent area, very emerging area, which where company secretaries also can pitch into and take up a role. And it is a very good area of practice as well. And even in-house company secretary, you can also may have an opportunity to handle internal audit. In today's dynamic and increasingly related business environment, now internal audit has evolved beyond the traditional role of checking the financial records, identifying the procedural deviations. Friends, we are aware that Section 138 of the Companies Act mandates that certain companies shall appoint internal auditor who shall conduct the internal audit and the functions of the activities of the company. And it shall be either chartered accountant or cost accountant in practice or employment or such other professional has been provided. And being company secretary is also so professionals where we have started, ICSA has started building capacity on internal audit. So this is today is one of the part of that activity. And we have also launched a PMQ course on the internal audit for all our members. And also, friends, the institute has represented Ministry of Corporate Affairs to amend Section 138 and to include company secretaries explicitly as a qualification to be appointed as the internal auditors. For company secretaries, friends, not only for the practicing company secretaries in internal audit as one of the role, but we have come across certain situations where the secretarial auditor, there is a discrepancy found in the secretarial audit report where the secretarial auditor did not go through the internal audit report, where in internal audit report some of the lapses were mentioned. So, as a secretarial auditor, also, it is our important job to go through the internal audit reports and also statutory audit report and recheck whether anything they have mentioned about the secretarial matters, company law related matters, to cross check ourselves and to ensure that our report will not have any deviation. Friends, this will be the And I would like to introduce Ms. Sana Bakwe Madam. She is a dynamic professional with over 20 years of experience as a chartered accountant, a brilliant author, entrepreneur, and an excellent leader. Friends, to date, she has delivered 500 plus sessions on the various prestigious platforms, including ICI, ICSI, IIA, Tax Bar Associations, various universities, colleges, etc. She is a commerce graduate from Delhi University. She is qualified CA, CS, LLB, and DISA. Presently, she is Regional Council member of NIRC for 2025 to 29. And she is also first woman president of the Institute of Internal Auditors, Delhi branch, and National Council member of IIA India. Friends, presently she is chairperson of the Student Development Committee at IIA, India for the third year in a row. And she was also a special invitee to Ethical Standards Board and the Board of Internal Audit and Management Accounting of ICAI. Among the other things, she has also co-authored a book called Fraud Prevention and Detection Through Internal Controls. So she also authored the book AI Age Entrepreneur as a part of Financial Literacy Initiative. So with this brief introduction, friends, I would like to request Sana Madam to take the session forward. Now, only one thing is, as a secretarial auditor, we are also confirming that internal controls are in place. So let us understand, Madam, please give some light, throw some light on the how there should be a check to be done on the internal controls part. Because as a secretarial auditor in secretarial audit report, we are confirming that all the systems and procedures controls are in place. So how we can make that statement? What are the documents we need to verify? So with this brief introduction, friends, now it is the floor is open for you, madam. Please go ahead.
Thank you so much, sir, for setting the context and giving the introduction. Let me share my PPT first. So is my PPT visible to all?
Yes, madam, it is visible. Very much visible.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. So today's topic for the session is internal audit tools and techniques. We will be focusing more on what tools and techniques as an auditor in the digital era we are required to have. And today we will not just talking about the softwares, we are talking about how the role of internal auditor is changing from checker of history to interpreter of risk in real time. So for many years, the internal audit was seen as the team that arrived after the event, checked files and asked uncomfortable questions. Now, with data analytics, automation, continuous monitoring, and AI, we can become faster, sharper, and more forward looking. The internal auditors once feared for two things: arriving unannounced and asking for documents no one could find. Today, we are still asking for documents. Only now we also ask for some dashboards, logs, data trails, etc. So this session, it's a part of ICSI Knowledge Master Series built on three pillars: enable, evaluate, and excel. The idea is very simple, but yet very powerful. First, build the capacity, then assess where you stand, and finally convert that learning into measurable improvement. In internal audit, many teams stop at the first pillar. They attend a webinar, read a report, maybe even buy a tool. But real value comes only when learning is converted into changed audit practice. This is where Excel comes, not just the spreadsheet kind, though auditors do have a legendary emotional attachment to Excel. So by the end of this session, I want each one of you to walk away with at least one tool idea, one governance question, and one action you can implant within, say, next 90 days. So what are we doing in next 120 minutes? We begin with the context, move on to the evolution of the audit and modern technology stack, then cover analytics, continuous auditing, process mining, RPA, AI, GRC platform, visualization, fraud analytics, and we'll close with the discussion and action planning. So just think of today's session as guided tour through the internal auditor digital toolkit. We are not trying to become data scientists by after this session, but we do want to become confident, informed, and practical in our tool choices. So as I go through these themes, please keep noting one question in your mind whereas my audit function is still operating in the old model, and whether am I ready to modernize it? So we'll revisit this question towards the end. So before we start, let's start with just one word. What is your biggest tool adoption challenge as an auditor today? Please type one single word in the chat box. It could be anything, whatever you think right. Please share it in the chat box. I need all of you to be a little more interactive because otherwise it will be just a lecture and I'm not sure how many of you will really get any benefit out of it. Please type in the chat box, what is your biggest tool adoption challenge as an auditor today? So I'm just giving you certain hints. It could be trust. It could be budget. It could be some other issues which you might be facing in your organization. So how many concerns which you are having? Because I believe that budget becomes one of the biggest challenge, which as an auditor, covering of large volume in less time, artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is rather a support instead of a challenge in adoption of the tool. So let me just share that once I asked this question in one of my session. So there they said the biggest challenge in any tool adoption is our CFO, because he's kind of a little concerned that yes, they are not very open to adopt any tool, because many times it happens that yes, they buy the tools but they don't use it. Let me come to the evolution of the internal audit, how the traditional practice looks like to what exactly is there in the digital and AI era practice right now. So this slide actually captures the real transformation in the internal audit world. The traditional practice relied heavily on manual vouching, judgment-based sampling, periodic reviews, static checklist, and reporting after the event. In the digital and AI era, models shift towards full population testing, risk-weighted analysis, continuous monitoring, AI-assisted risk assessment, and predictive assurance. So I'm just giving you another example. So in a traditional payroll audit, an auditor might sample 25 salary transactions from a month and test them manually. In a digital model, you just need to put in the whole data into the system, and the analytics can scan the entire payroll population for identifying the ghost employees, duplicate bank accounts, unusual overtime spikes, or payment outside the approval norms. That changes not just the speed, but assurance quality as well. So the real question is that how are we adopting these and how are we moving from the traditional to the digital era? So what went wrong last quarter? That is something what used to be taken care by the old audit, the traditional audit which we were doing. In today's era, while we are adopting the digital technologies, so the modern audit should actually ask what is starting to look wrong right now. That is the difference between reading the post-mortem report and checking the patient's pulse. That's the major difference. We were more focused earlier on what happened historically. Even the board has changed their thought process, and now they are more forward looking, that what is there in future. That becomes very important and you know quite relevant in today's time. I just ask another question from all of you, that which row on the left is your function is still stick on, and which row on the right have you already genuinely moved to? As in, are you still stuck to the traditional one, or moved on and become expert in the new and the digital methods which people are using for now? Please write it in the chat box. So please write it in the chat box, which row on the left is your function is still stuck on, and which row on the right you have already genuinely moved to. All right, dynamic AI, which you are using, that's great. So out of these traditional and the modern technology, where you are stuck in the traditional one and where you have moved on and made the strength in the new world. Because until unless you will, adopt the new technology, until unless you will be using, we will not be relevant for future. Because all of us knows that it is not the technology which fails us. But if we don't learn it, only then we become irrelevant. So it's very, very crucial and important for us to understand the latest things and adopt it as soon as we can. So coming to the next slide, let me tell you the modern internal audit technology stack. So this is the map for the next 45 minutes. So let me just orient you and then we'll move fast. The 6 building blocks: data analytics and BI, continuous auditing and process mining, robotic process automation, AI, machine learning and generative AI, GRC and audit management platforms, cyber and IT audit tools. So just notice this order. It goes from getting your data in order on the left to automation and intelligence on the right. So that's roughly also the order of adoption difficulty. And it will matter later when we do a poll on where you are prioritize your own next investment. Each of these gets its own slide, so relax. We don't need to capture everything on this one. Think of this as a table of content and not just the chapter. So these 6 building blocks are no unlike the CS syllabus. We don't need to memorize all 6. at the end, though I promise that there's a quiz. It's called, and it's a next poll which we'll be having. So keep participating. That's when we actually take full benefit of this session. So coming to the first building block, data analytics and business intelligence. That is the foundation where everything else in the stack builds on. If your data is not analyzable, nothing downstream works, no matter how fancy the AI layer is. So when I say that your data needs to be proper, it has to be analyzable. That is the most important thing. So on one side, we have tools like ACL, now under diligent, high bond, and caseware idea remain the purpose-built audit-specific standards for extraction, testing, and exception reporting. SQL and Python or R let auditors query ERP and large data sets directly for custom test script. And Power BI and Tableau handles the reporting part and the dashboard layer on the top. But here's the honest question I want to ask from all of you. Who here is still exporting to Excel from every single test? Nothing wrong in that. We have been there too. The point is not that don't exist. It's that having access to a tool and actually embedding it into the standard audit methodology are two very different things. One of the most practical angle I want you to walk away with is move from sample-based assurance to 100% of the population testing on your highest risk transaction class, like journal entries, vendor payments, payroll, and start there, not everywhere. Let me give you an example. I worked with a mid-sized manufacturing client where the entire vendor payment testing used to take 3 auditors nearly 2 weeks every quarter. Sampling maybe 200 transactions out of 30,000. Once we scripted the test in IDEA, and the same test ran on the full population in less than a day. And it got duplicate payments that 12 quarters of a manual sampling had completely missed. So simply because they never fell into the sample. So that's the power of the technology and the latest tools which are available. So let me ask you one question. Who are still exporting to the Excel for every test, every time, and then pivoted to the practical angle? How many of you are doing? Kindly write it in the chat box. I need all of you to be a little more interactive to make this session really fruitful for all of you. So let me ask another question. How many here have used data analytics for a live audit engagement and not just reporting? As in maybe you would have used Python or IDEA as a software. How many of you have used those platforms? Tableau and Power BI is very useful and quite common tools which we as an auditor use for displaying and creating the dashboards, creating the giving a eye view of what has happened. So let's have a quick poll on a scale of 1 to 5. How mature is data analytics adoption in your audit function today? 1 means fully manual and spreadsheet based, and 3 means ad hoc analytics on select audits, and 5 means analytics embedded in every engagement. Please share your number in the chat box. Where do you think that what exactly is, as in how mature is your data analytics? Please share your number in the chat box. How mature is your digital analytics in your organization? 3, 5. They have moved on. So if you consider that you are at 3, that is actually a healthy place to be. It means the journey has started, but there's still room for meaningful improvement. If some say that yes, they have improved, they're working further, but on to 5, I would say that it's wonderful. After this session, you must share it with all that what exactly and how you are doing it, across all your engagements. The goal is not to be on the 5 on paper. The goal is to be credible, repeatable, and useful in practice. That's the key. So the next block is continuous auditing and continuous controls monitoring. The tools here include ERP embedded monitoring like SAP, GRC or Oracle Risk Management Cloud, custom dashboards for exception alerts, and dynamic risk scoring that update as fresh transaction data flows in. The central idea is moving from a quarterly snapshot to an always on heartbeat. Uh, just think of it like this. If control fails in April, but your audit discovers it in September, the finding may still be technically valid, but the business damage that had already been matured. Just think about it. Continuous monitoring reduces that lag dramatically. So let me share another example. Once we have seen a purchase approval threshold is set into the system, but override patterns begin increasing. So CCM rule can flag breach immediately rather than allowing 6 months of non-compliance before anyone asks the question. That's the assurance equivalent of installing a smoke detector instead of writing a fire report afterward. So as an auditor, we found the leaks. The continuous monitoring says we heard the drip before the ceiling fell. So that is very crucial and important because the number of transactions gradually have increased a lot. The next important block is process mining. So tools like Celonis, Arrest process mining, and UI path process mining that reconstruct the actual process flow directly from the event logs, showing how a process is really executed rather than how it appears in SOPs or walkthroughs. Conformance checking compares as designed against as executed. This is powerful because many process failures are invisible in interview. People explain the ideal process, they give you, the idealistic situation based on what is there in the SOP. However, the system reveals the real process. A walkthrough maybe could be a three-way match, which always happens. The process mining may show repeated cases where invoices were posted before purchase order completion or approval were bypassed through various routes. I often say this that SOPs are like wedding photographs, very well arranged. Process mining is like CCTV footage, which is much closer to the real life. So, how many of you have ever found that the documented process and the actual process are very different while doing the audit? How many of you? Please put it in the chat box that how many of you have actually seen that difference and understood that yes, these are the things where it was working. We all know the answers as the auditor that what exactly is the reality. Coming to the next block, that is robotic process automation in the internal audit. Tools like UI path automation, Anywhere, and Power Automate, these can replicate repetitive rule-based audit steps, especially evidence gathering, recurring extracts, confirmation, scripted test. RPA can do all these things very well. So the recommended starting point is low judgment and high volume task where you can, deploy the RPAs. A practical thing which you can fix using this is fixed recurring test you can do for the duplicate invoices, threshold based approval exceptions, or downloading periodic evidences from multiple systems. We all understand pretty well by now that AI has and these robotic automation processes, these all are, you know, uh, they started working, but they are more like a monotonous task which they are doing. They are trained not to judge, but the standards are set where the volume is high and the judgment is low. It will, pinpoint those areas. So, auditors should not, spend premium human time doing the robotic work when bots can do it more consistently. We need to understand and think that how we can optimize our time, how we can optimize what as an the results while using the right tools and technology. RPA is fantastic if you are using it for a process which has high volume task but requires lesser judgment. So let me just add a caution over here. Do not automate any confusion. If a process is broken manually, it will become broken faster digitally. One of the most expensive things an organization can treat is a very efficient bad process. So if I ask you, which repetitive audit task in your team most deserves a bot, where you can, you know, use the RPA best? Please put it in the chat box that what are the tasks where you feel that yes, this RPA can handle it better. Purchases, because that's a important and a crucial task where we can put it, because usually the approvals are set, volume is pretty high, and if the exceptions comes in, there's very less judgment which is required. So in the purchase process, we can definitely deploy the RPS, and it really works pretty well over there. Now coming to the next block. AI and machine learning applications. These actually include anomaly and fraud detection models, predictive risk scoring and NLP-based review of contracts, policies, and unstructured text. The practical angle which is crucial over here is AI output is a triage layer, not an audit conclusion. Professional skepticism is still with the auditor. For example, if you find an anomaly model, that may flag the journal entries posted late at night, just below the approval limit, and clustered around period end. Though that does not prove any fraud, but it gives the audit team a smarter starting point for the inquiry. So one of the biggest misconception is that AI knows everything. It does not know. It detects patterns and probabilities. I remember once my teammate asked that if AI has already flagged the risky items, then what is there for us? And that time I said, everything important is with us, be it validation, context, judgment, and the courage. AI can tell you where to look, but it cannot replace the moment when the auditor says something about this does not smell right. It can detect pattern, it can work on multiple things. That's completely fine. But yes, again, as I said, that it is very important to have the judgment. And audit is, I would say, even after using all these tools, the human judgment is quite crucial in completion of any audit. Coming to the next block is generative AI and LLM copilots. These tools we all are using by now. There is nothing new, I would say, but these tools can help draft audit programs and checklist. It can summarize larger set of documents and support conversational risk assessment across structured and unstructured inputs. The slides practice, as in this slide is quite practical. Generative AI accelerates and helps you in drafting, but not giving you any conclusion. And AI is more like garbage in, garbage out rule applies very well over here. If you are not giving the proper commands, if you're not using it properly, then it will only and only give you what you were as an if you're not giving the proper prompts, it will not give you the right results. So Gen AI accelerates the drafting. It can give you a lot of good English, but not the conclusion. And not every out and you know, not every output is reliable. You need to review it, link it with evidences, and then sign it off. Another challenge which we as an auditor is facing with AI is data protection. So we need to be very careful on that part as well while using the AI. We all understand the DPDP is now applicable. It is now practically implemented, and all the organizations are compulsorily required to adopt it. It's been almost 2-3 years that the law is in place. The rules are in place for almost a year now, and it's a time where all the organizations are actually adopting. So a simple use case in is like asking a Gen AI copilot is to summarize the board minutes, policy changes, or the contract clauses, or maybe prior findings, so the auditor can identify areas which requires deeper attention. Use it properly to save time, but use it actually very, very carefully. Gen AI is like a enthusiastic, article assistant who works at lightning speed, never sleeps, writes very beautifully, but occasionally states nonsense with total confidence. So yes, useful, but not yet promptable without supervision. Supervision is must. So if I ask you, how many of you have already experimented with the Gen AI in some professional capacity, be it drafting, summarizing, or the brainstorming? Because all these are pretty interesting. Please put it in the chat box. Question maker. AI, let me tell you, can help you in drafting better, but again, the judgment is very important. So I'm just giving you a news from I think 2-3 days back. It was reported that a person in US was fined heavily, as in penalized heavily, for using the AI for making submissions in the court, and some hallucinated cases, etc., was there, and it was not proper. So be careful while using AI. It is still developing. And though it has developed a lot, generative AI and now the agentic AI is in place. People are creating their own agents. They're using it very well. So we can adopt those technologies. I'm just giving you the overview of what tools we have. And it takes some time to understand each tool, evaluate it better for based on your own organization. So my next question for all of you is, so let's have a test judgment through this case. Your AI anomaly detection tool has flagged 500 transactions as high risk. Now, the question is, how do you triage them with a limited team? What validation would you apply before treating them as genuine exceptions? And how would you report false positives and model limitation to the audit committee? Just think about it and give your responses in the chat box, because that's the only way where we can communicate to each other. I'm waiting for your response. Question is in front of you that your AI anomaly detection tool has flagged 500 transactions as high risk. The question is, how do you triage them with the limited team? What validation would you apply before treating them as a genuine exception? And how would you report false positive and model limitation to the audit committee? Yes, please reply in the question box or the chat box which you have. So the first thing is triage using risk filter. The risk filter which you can use is the value process criticality. How critical is your process? If there's related party links, any override indicators, or the period and timings, and the repeated occurrence of the transactions. So these are the things which you can, filter out. Second is, while validating it through the source document, approve the trail, the business rationale or comparison with unknown good transactions. Compare it properly before you conclude it. And when it comes to reporting, report it transparently, number flagged, numbers reviewed, and numbers which were substantiated, how many are false positive ratio, and the model limitations. So if 500 transactions are flagged and maybe 480 are false positive, that is not a failure to hide. That's a governance fact to disclose. Audit committees always prefer an honest model limitation over an overconfident black box. So if your tool flags have the ledger, that's not advanced analytics, that is digital panic. So consider that as well. Coming to the next block, quite important, GRC and audit management platforms. So tools like Audit Board, Metric Stream, Resolver, Teammate Plus, and Auto Audit Connect Risk, control issues tracking, uh, digital working paper, review notes, and remediation workflows. the practical value of a single auditable trail from planning to the board reporting. This matters because many audit functions are still fragmented across emails, folders, and spreadsheets, and multiple versions which were naming like final one, final two underscore reviewed, final two reviewed underscore latest. All these things happens, and it is very common when we keep, working through in a staggered manner. So auditors and as in the regulators and the audit committee both have increasingly expect traceability, ownership, and documentation integration. So these becomes very, very crucial. So I remember once my team told me that they had strong issue tracking. So when I asked where it is maintained, the answer is mostly in one senior manager's memory. That's not issue tracking. That is organizational optimism. So how many of you are still using that, managing it through the spreadsheets and the email trails which you are using? So find it and answer it honestly that you are still using these V1, V2, V3, final 2, final 3, and then reviewed latest. So that becomes pretty challenging. Coming to the next block, data visualization and dashboard reporting. That's the eighth block in the tool. Power BI and Tableau, these can replace static PDF reports with drill down dashboards. They create the risk heat maps and live issue remediation tracking. All these features are available over there. The key message which is there is that whatever you have find out, whatever you have worked on, it has to be clearly and visibly reported to the audit committee. Because as an audit committee, they just need a bird's eye view of the relevant and important matters. They need a 30-second heat map. While process owners, they might need the detailed drill downs, that what is there, what's not there, because not every member in the audit committee comes from a finance background. Not everyone is interested in getting deep, as in, going into the depth. They just want to understand the impact, the issues and their impact. The most common reporting mistake, which, as an auditor, is giving everyone the same level of detail. So we need to understand that at the board level, the detail has to be very less. They should know all the crucial matters. The senior stakeholders, they just need an overview. However, the operations or the process owners, they need more details to act on it. That how many cases are there, how many things have been, working. So a good dashboarding is not just decoration, it's a decision architecture that what you are reporting. For example, a board facing dashboard might show top 20 risk, or sorry, top 10 risk, overdue high priority issues, the control failure trend, and the business unit heat map. And a process owner dashboard that might further break down to the root causes, the aging bucket, the responsible owners, and the transaction level drilled down. Each and everything becomes important while we work on these dashboard components. And let me tell you that these dashboards are successful when the board understand it quickly and the process owner cannot hide behind it. The process and owner cannot say that uh, this is something which he is not responsible for. So that's the key for having a fantastic or a more useful dashboard. Coming to the next block, the 19th one, digital fraud detection. Digital fraud detection techniques. This actually highlights the Banford's law analysis, link and network analysis, and text mining of whistleblower or the complaint data. The practice angle, which is important over here, is a statistical anomaly is a lead for inquiry, not a finding by itself. If there's any anomaly, it just gives you a direction to go a little, into the depth, to deep dive into it and find out the real cause. So just suppose there's a network analysis which reveals that a vendor and an employee share the same phone number and address pattern, or that multiply complaints mention the same approver or location. So none of these proves misconduct alone, but together they create a strong audit trail for deeper investigation. So another example is Benford's law. It is useful in large data set, but that's not magical. I often say that Benford is like a metal detector on a beach. It can alert you, but it cannot tell whether you found the treasure trash or someone's old belt buckle. Right. It only gives you a hint on it that where the detection it gives is different, if there's some patterns which is being made. How many of you knows the Benford's law, or should I explain it a bit? Please put it in the query box. I think it is named like that. How many of you knows the Benford law? So just for understanding of all, that law is used in audit as well as more into the forensic investigation. So Benford law detects the statistical pattern where various digits are appearing, how more often they are appearing. So for example, if you're looking at the first digit of a number, is like a thing of a population of a cities or electricity bill or stock prices. So it gives you that idea. It gives you the probability technically. It's Benford law. So for example, if you have collected 10,000 invoice amounts from a large company, right? And if the data is natural, it might see that 3,000 of the invoices begins with 1. Around 1700, some odd figure begins with 2. Fewer than 500 begins with 9. So that is something which is normal. But if there is a pattern in the digits, that Benford's law detect that. It is widely used for fraud detection and for analyzing the data. And it helps you in detecting the anomalies and validating the data sets for unexpected manipulation. So, has anyone used the complaint data or the narrative data or link analysis in an audit or investigation setting? I want you to respond, please, in the query box that have you ever used the complaint data or the narrative data or link analysis in an audit? Let me tell you that it is very, very crucial to have those complaint data or the narrative data which is available, or maybe the feedbacks or some kind of analysis that gives you sometimes indicators that what is happening and where the controls are lacking. I remember I was doing audit for a bank, and there you know, we used to find that a same pattern of complaints are coming. Sometimes it is because of rivalry, it is something as in the same patterns. Then we ask them that if the more complaints are received related to this issue, then what exactly is the root cause? We deep dive into it, found some lags, that there was some system issue in it that was not proper. And we reported that part that yes, that needs to be proved. Sometimes the complaint data gives you some indication. We received some, complaints related to the people working in the organization in that branch, that their behavior is improper, or somebody was saying that yes, they are having issues, he is misbehaving. So as an auditor, we are not just responsible for the numbers, we are responsible more for the controls. As in, while we are doing our secretarial audit, our focus is more on the compliances, and in more we are more focused onto the secretarial compliances. While we are doing the financial audit, as an internal audit of accounts, are we are more focused onto the internal controls and the processes. The stat auditor is more focused on the balance sheet and P&L, whether it is showing true and fair view. So as an internal auditor, our thought process, our way of working is different than other auditors. So we need to be a little more, careful. The internal auditors are considered as all-rounder. Coming to the next important tool, cyber and IT audit tools. So these are certain examples: vulnerability scanners like Nessus and Qualys. These are the tools. Same tools like Splunk and access and segregation of duty analytics. So there are various tools which helps in, in understanding if there is any breach in the segregation of the duties. So, even in the current DPDP, we as the CA or the CS, we possess our client data, which is quite crucial. The organizations for which we are working right now, they started seeking, data from their vendors, their consultants, that while they're having the access to the crucial information. So as a CS, we all have the details of the shareholders, how many shareholders are there, how many of their category, and all other things we have, including their contact details, their addresses, etc. The DPDP applies to the consultants as well. It is extended to us because the company is under the DPDP law. While we are giving services, it is being mandated by the professionals as well to ensure that we are protecting the data properly. So even yesterday, I was filling a checklist form for one of my client. They sent to us, they said that we share data with you for our vendors for certain works and their PAN numbers, etc. So how are you maintaining it? And it's a good detailed questionnaire which they sent. And one of a very important question on it is, apart from the firewall, etc., what are all other securities you have into your system? Is your system getting audited? Are you having access controls? Such questions will be asked from each one of us because we are possessing our client data. If you're in as in working for the organization, if you are working as a CS in the organization, I'm sure we all understand that we are under that scanner. Even if we are working as a consultant, we are under the same scanner because of the clients for which we are working. So maintaining the access control, who can do what, who can have an access to that data, who can edit it, who can view it, download it, etc., etc. All those things can be done as in to understand all these things. These are certain tools which can help us in analyzing those, and checking if there is any breach. The important thing over here is IT general controls now underpin almost every financial and operational audit. So even non-IT auditors need baseline cyber tool literacy. So we all as a consultant now need to understand that where we are keeping that data. And we should also have a basic understanding of these cyber tools. Today, if the systems are weak, the processes are weak. If the access controls are weak, approvals can be undermined. If logs are not maintained or monitored, incident response cannot be tested meaningfully. That makes cyber awareness an audit issue, not just an IT issue. It is no more an IT issue. Now that we all understand that for all the companies, for financial records, audit trail become compulsory from last 2 years, that the companies are required to maintain, as in have a audit trail. From last year, as in it is being made mandatory to not just have a audit trail, but to maintain it for a longer period without, tempering that trail. So with all these things, it is quite crucial for us not just to learn AI and all other things. Cyber becomes another important aspect for all of us to understand. So while I was going through that checklist of DPDP, implementation for one of my client, which they've asked us, I realized that there's so many things which we also need to learn. So I am into practice for last 20 years. Somewhat our tendency to and our mindset is still old when we started our journey. Initially, we were not resistant, but knowingly, unknowingly, we started becoming a bit resistant to the changes. And adoption of the new technology becomes challenging for us as well. Despite we try to keep ourselves abreast with the latest technology and what is happening new, etc. Still, we face certain challenges because some terminologies, some technologies, it looks some, Greek words to us. So let me share another example. So during a revenue and a procurement audit, if user access conflicts allows the same individual to create a vendor and approve the payment. The control issue is not merely technical, it is deeply operational and financial, both. So earlier, the auditor used to ask who signed this. Now, in the digital era, while the organizations are moving quite fast into the digital mode, and we should ask that who had system right to make this happen. Even in the preset softwares, many times we don't even think of doing the negative testing. And I believe that as an auditor, we all should consider having this negative testing done for all kind of work which we are having, the softwares which we are having. I remember while we were testing for one of the audit tool, somebody, see, now with AI, there are a lot of tools which are available in the market, lot many, which is being developed by the professionals, the companies, secretaries and chartered accountants. So I saw they made very beautiful tools for our daily life, be it in GST, be it in income tax, be it for audit or process automation or for practice management. Lots and lots of tools are available because AI gives you the whole code. You just have to test a bit and then it's good to go. And there are a lot of free tools are also available. We become so used to of using it the way the demo is given to us and we start using it. But we don't do the negative testing. That what if this figure is not being, this input is not given, what will happen? So while you are testing any of the software, be it anyone, a renowned one or whatever, do the negative testing before you deploy it in your organization. Or even if you're developing it, do the negative testing first. That is quite crucial. So let me ask this very, very practical question. Do this poll. Which tool category would you prioritize adopting in, say, next 12 months? Data analytics and CCM, RPA, AIML, Gen AI Copilot, GRC platforms, or cyber and audit tools. Please vote it in the query box. Which one will you prioritize adopting in next 12 months? I'm waiting for your answer in the query box. Please write it. I'm still waiting for the answers, please. That what will you prioritize to adopt in your organization? A and B, B, C, E, A. So mostly responses is A, and B. That's great. Good to know that, yes, that's a real honest answer, that this is what we are prioritizing. This is actually very interesting to understand that people are more focusing towards the digital, as in data analytics. So that usually signals the mature realism because analytics is often the foundation. If the GRC or the cyber is being implemented, that's the base. The data analytics, that's the base. So your priorities tells us not just what tools interest you, but what gaps your audit function is feeling most strongly today. So I understand that many times we get deviated and from the way we are supposed to do our audits, we start deviating from it and do it the way stat audit is being done. So internal audit is being conducted many times like a stat audit, just doing the samplings, ticking, etc., and then it's done. The process is absolutely different. For the internal auditors, we are more focused onto the, I would say, uh, we are more focused onto the internal controls. That is where and how the processes are working. That becomes quite crucial. If you are ready for adoption of the cyber and IT audit tools, the maturity is quite good. And it is really important for all of us as a consultant that we need to focus on adopting the cyber tools and IT audit tools as soon as we can. So coming to the next slide. So basically this slide compares the traditional statistical sampling with the analytics enabled 100% or the full test population testing. Sampling test, these are basically representative or subsets and remain efficient when extraction is costly, but it can miss rare high impact outliers. Full population testing checks the entire data set and is especially very powerful in high risk, high volume processes. Those processes which provide data which is clean and accessible. The important thing to note over here is that leading function blend both approaches based on risk, not just the habits. So sampling is like tasting one spoon from pot of a soup. Usually it works, but if the problem is only at the bottom, say some excess salt is settled and something undesirable dropped in a corner, then 100% testing gives you the greater comfort. For example, uh, for petty cash, sampling may still be reasonable, but for journal entries, vendor payments, payroll anomalies, population testing can be far more effective. And a good audit methodology is not choosing one side forever. It is choosing wisely, process by process. I won't say that the traditional won't work, but yes, it is important for us that choose process by process, which one is better, which one can work well. And it is very, very important. As a auditor, I would say that any leading function, they blend both 100% testing for critical processes and statistical sampling elsewhere where chosen deliberately by risk and where the risk is a little low. I've seen a audit methodology committee spends nearly two full meetings debating whether 100% testing is sufficient for appropriate audit evidence under the existing framework. Not because the testing was weaker, but because the documentation standards were written for a sampling world and simply didn't have a box to tick. We tested everything. So the technology outran the methodology, paperwork, and that's actually a real current tension. That's not a hypothetical one. So if I ask you, does anyone want to push back on the idea that 100% testing is automatically better evidence? I really want to hear from all of you that which one do you consider as an do you consider that if we move on to 100% testing for everything, that's a better way of conducting the audit instead of doing some sampling? Do write it in the query box. So which one do you think that if we go for 100% testing, that's a better option? How many of you think that 100%, now that we have technology, we have tools in place, if we do 100% testing of everything, that will, enhance the quality of audit or helps us in building better evidences? So let me tell you, everything has its own, importance. If we are doing full population testing, then that is anyways good, but it may be a little more time consuming if we are doing it for each process. So we need to be, that's where the human judgment comes in. That what requires full testing and what requires only the sample testing. So just choose it based on the risk involved. Now coming to our next slide. So this slide basically moves from tools to methodology. So we have discussed the various tools which is available. Now let's discuss on the methodology, which as an auditor we can use. So agile and dynamic risk-based auditing means maintaining a living risk universe using sprint-based execution, rolling audit plans, and real-time reporting to the audit committee instead of relying on a statistical annual cycle. So on a static annual cycle. The business environment changes too quickly for annual planning alone to remain sufficient. Emerging risk, regulatory shift, technology failure, fraud signals, and operational disruptions do not wait politely for the next year's audit plan. So I remember one audit team, they have beautifully prepared an annual plan in the month of January. By June, the organization has undergone a system change, a complete restructuring, and a major vendor issue. But the plan still looks neat. Sometimes the neatest audit plan is the least relevant one. So agility in audit does not mean chaos. It means disciplined adaptability. It is quite important for the auditors to work in that dynamic world. The way the things are moving, the things are changing. It is quite important. So rolling audit plans become quite crucial. I remember there was a function where we were working on. I'm familiar with move from a rigid annual plan to quarterly reprioritization. And the first real test came when a major regulatory change was announced some way in the mid-year. So under the old annual plan model, the risk would have waited 11 months for the next planning cycle. Under this rolling model, it was in the field within the 3 weeks. That's the entire argument for agile auditing in one sentence. So how many of you are still logged into a strictly annual audit plan with no formal mid-year reprioritization or mechanism? What do you think? How many of you have used agility in your audit? Because that's the way, that's the methodology for working and being making the audit more effective and relevant for the organization. Because rigidity is something which, you might not found today's actual action item for it. So this slide, I believe, is quite important because it focuses more on us as a human side of digital audit. So far, we were talking about tools, etc. This slide is more focused on what are the human side as an auditor we need to take care of. The future-ready internal auditors need, of course, the data literacy, tech fluency, professional skepticism, which is very, very crucial, AI and data ethics awareness. Ethics is something which is important for all of us. And even for the AI, we are talking about how ethical AI is behaving. Storytelling with data and a commitment to continuous learning. If you notice, what has not been changed is the skepticism, the judgment, ethics, and communication, because these remain central. Technology raises the baseline, but the auditor's human role becomes more valuable, if not less. So practically, if I would say, many times, the teams invest in tools, but not in translation. They can produce very good dashboards, but of course, cannot make the decisions. They can run good scripts, but not ask the sharper questions. Because audit is about, asking more questions to deep dive into the issue. The future auditor must be part analyst, part storyteller, part skeptic, and always a custodian of trust. If I ask you all, which of these six capabilities do you think they are most underdeveloped in professional in today's professional world? Write it in the query box, please. That out of these six capabilities, do you think is most underdeveloped in profession today, which requires, more attention? What do you think? Please write it in the query box. I'm waiting for your answers. So out of these, I would say depends on all, but I feel professional skepticism is something which, as an auditor, as the next generation, we need to develop a little more. Continuous learning is always there. Like today's program, where we are learning a lot, and more tech fluency is something where we need to, you know, learn a lot. We are more focused towards the laws and the compliances, etc. A little less aware about the tech. So for the old auditors, I would say is the tech fluency. For the new generation, we need to develop more of the professional skepticism, because the older people, they have more of, the experience which they are having. Coming to the next slide. This is a caution slide, I would say, and quite essential. AI in audit raises concern around data privacy and security, model bias and hallucination, which is happening nowadays. Uh, Automation, complacency, and governance and accountability. Sensitive data used in AI overflows needs the same control discipline as any other audit evidence. And every AI assisted conclusion still need independent validation and a human sign off. So without we being reviewed it's completely useless. A practical governance framework should answer at least these questions. What tool may be used? What data may be uploaded? Who approves the usage? And how outputs are reviewed and how the audit trail is documented. If those questions are unanswered, adoption is actually premature. We all know that AI keeps hallucinating. AI hallucination is in casual conversation that may be amusing, but in an audit file, it's a career limiting event. Just imagine an auditor relying on an AI generated clause summary without checking the actual contract wording. That's one missed indemnity condition or a approval clause that can change the entire audit conclusion. Speed by the AI is definitely helpful, but false certainty is very, very dangerous. It is very important for us to understand all these things. Data privacy and security, sensitive data is used to train or query AI tools. That needs exactly the same control as any other audit evidence. Model bias and hallucination, AI outputs can be confidently wrong. And every single conclusion drawn from the AI tool needs independent validation. And that not just a quick glance, but a proper validation. Automation complacency, that's over reliance on tool output that can erode the very professional skepticism these tools were meant to sharpen. The governance, accountability, that's clear written policy on AI use, human sign off, and audit trail documentation is absolutely non negotiable, not a nice to have for later. And on hallucination specifically, I've seen an AI tool confidently citing a regulation section that simply does not exist. I've seen many case laws which is being hallucinated. Uh, and while it was written, it was with completely fluency and conviction, and it looks very confident, but completely wrong. That's the risk, and that's the bigger risk on someone's image. So if your organization has no written AI use policy yet, that is genuinely this week's action item for you, not a someday kind of a project. And it is really, really very important. So now it's your turn. Let's hear from you. Which tool from today would you implement in your organization in next 90 days? I need these answers in the chat box, please, as in the query box, please. That what do you think? So let's answer the first question. Which tool would you implement within next 90 days? What governance safeguard would you assist on before Gen AI deployment, and how do you see the auditor's role evolving over the next 5 years? Make it interesting, please. Share it in the chat box, your experiences, your thoughts with all of us. With adoption of improved technology, internal audit function is moving to preventive vigilance. Somebody wrote over there. That's really, really nice. So within 90 days, many teams can pilot analytics or a dashboard based issue tracking faster than they think. That's one of the important and crucial aspect. If you're not using it so far, that's what you can deploy. And there's a need for data access, there's a need for guardrails, and there's a need for upskilling. That's really, really important for all of us to understand. So ask yourself these questions. These are quite important. And I would say that in next 5 years, somebody has wrote it in the chat box, as in the query box, that with the improved technology, AI function is moving to preventive vigilance. As I said in the beginning of my session today, that yes, as of now, the as an over a period, the role has evolved for the internal auditors. Initially, we were thinking and we were, considered as someone who came and detect something. Now we are here for the prevention and for vigilance. That's really important. And the role of the internal auditor will remain there, irrespective of tools and technology that will come in it. Human element, as I said earlier, it remains crucial to the organization. So key takeaways, the 5 key takeaways from today's session uh, are that assurance is moving from periodic to continuous. Analyticals enables 100% testing on critical processes. AI accelerate drafting while judgment remains human. Integrated GRC platform create one auditable trail, and tool fluency is now a core audit competence. And so the 90-day action plan for you is to assess, pilot, and upskill. Assess your current maturity honestly. Pilot one high impact tool in one audit. Upskill your team in data and AI literacy. That's really, really important. And do not just launch a digital transformation slogan. Start with one visible win. So, for example, one analytics based journal entry review, or maybe one dashboard for issue aging, or one bot for evidence extraction. Momentum is easier to build after you gain the credibility. The credibility of the system becomes very, very crucial. And transformation does not always begin with a budget. Sometimes it begins with one brave pilot and one less spreadsheet. So that's all for today. If now the floor is open, it is all yours for all the questions. Please feel free to ask.
Yes, madam. Thank you so much, madam, for your detailed session, and especially on the technical perspective, you have given a lot of thought process that how the AI tools can be used. There are few questions, madam. I just want to ask you.
Sure,
One
sir.
question has come from the member asking that kindly provide your thoughts how forensic audit can play a role in internal audit.
So basically, the forensic comes a little later, though the initial hint or the point is given by the internal auditor and then taken up by the forensic auditor to get into the depth of that issue. if you are a forensic auditor, I'm sure you will be a very good auditor as well, the internal auditor, because they deep dive into the things, they analyze it. There's so many laws which is used by the forensic auditor is also being used by the internal auditors. Like I've given the example of the Benford law, that while testing we follow that law in the software like idea which we keep using, or the ASL, these laws are inbuilt. And once you put in the data, you can analyze all these things, be it for the internal auditor or the forensic audit. For forensic audit, it gives you a lead. And then there's so many things, much more than the internal audit, which as a forensic auditor you need to. Hope
Uh, Madam,
answers your question.
how the artificial intelligence can stimulate internal audit process in case if there is a change in the prescribed tools usage, how it is going to impact.
Sorry, sir, can you please repeat?
The question is how an artificial intelligence tool will impact or stimulate the internal audit process, and if any change in the usage of a tool means you will shift one tool to another tool, so it will impact the process or the flow of the internal audit.
So if you are changing from one tool to another in any audit process, so it will not have much impact if your process is very clear. So there are two things. If you are switching from one tool to another and it's a permanent switch, then again it's a different thing. If you are using multiple tools and taking one data as in data you're extracting from one tool and then putting it into different one, the second one, the transition is quite okay and it's easy. That's not a problem.
So how it will stimulate, madam? Even the changes will get it properly addressed.
Yes, the changes usually gets addressed.
Simulated, okay.
It depends on how you are using that tool.
And one more question, madam. When the internal audit, we will always say that the internal controls or systems are in place. If somebody is using the AI and trying to tamper or modify the like due dates or some other thing, because in the regular statutory audit, financial audit, there are audit trials where you will able to find out if there is any mischief happened or any this thing wrong thing happened. But here in the internal audit, when AI tools are used, is there any process by which the organization can find that some tampering happened in this particular SOP or in the process?
So the logs are not for just for the start auditors. It is with the company and accessible to internal auditors as well. To find out, and rather a detailed log is available for the internal auditor to assess if there is any tampering which is being happened, because the logs, audit logs, these are quite crucial for the internal auditors to check if there is any variation or deviation in the audit as in the process. So that becomes one, pick point or the start point for further investigation
Yeah.
or for checking of the controls.
Yes, madam. If the manually something is done, then you can able to find out if it is done in technology using the technology. Uh,
So now the cyber
how
tools are there. There are
okay.
a lot of IT and cyber tools are there to detect if there is any change in the technology itself. That's what
Okay.
we have discussed in one of the slide. I give it in detail that now learning of the cyber tools is quite crucial for all of us as a auditor or as a consultant even.
Okay, okay. Is there any publication sort of thing where we can have some guidance on these tools?
So these tools, ISACA is having the publication. I can share it with you. That ISACA has published onto the cyber tools and IT, cyber and IT tools.
Okay. So, how can internal audit improve collaboration with management without compromising the independence?
So independence is very, very important for the internal auditor to maintain. And it is on the internal auditor, and it is the requirement, or you would say the professional ethics. These are the basic requirements for the auditor while they're conducting any audit, that they need to remain independent. While they are, as in working in coordination with the board, I'm sure there are ways and means to make them understand that it is crucial for the health of the organization, that to maintain their independence and to ensure that the quality of the audit remains uncompromised. The relationship of the auditor with the board and the personal relationship, both as a professional, we need to keep it separate.
Madam, while using the AI tools, normally AI tools, once we give the data input, it will get stored to again give it back for some other this thing. So, would you suggest that while doing an internal audit process for a particular company, what kind of precautions we have to take, giving the company specific, organization specific details to be loaded into AI system for audit purpose? What kind of precautions we should take to maintain that confidentiality or the data privacy there?
So now that we all understand that DPDP is applicable, the rules are out and it is being implemented with most of the organization, and compulsory for all of us to have the policy on use of AI, policy on use of data. There are tools for retraction. You need to, as in convert that data maybe into a PDF, then retract it. It and eliminate the crucial information. So while retracting, that process eliminates the personal information of the people and the figure of the organization. Then you can put it in AI, take that out, and again, work on that result without putting the personal information, because it becomes otherwise quite crucial and negligence onto the company if they put the whole data in AI without retracting the data.
Okay. One more point, madam. While internal auditors, whether they are required to cover GST and income tax matters, if they have to cover, is there any tools that where it can access like GST or returns and all from the GST portals or income tax portals? So data compilation, data retrieving, and data analysis.
So when it comes to GST and income tax, though it is a compliance part, as in these are the laws which is applicable to the organization, and as an internal auditor, compliances of law needs to be checked in any case. However, it depends upon the scope of internal auditor. It is not a stat audit where you are compulsorily requires checking of these things. However, usually it is part of the scope. The For internal auditor, we need to check whether it is there in our scope. If the compliances of law is part of it, which usually it is, then we need to check it. For income tax uh, and GST portals are there, then there are so many softwares which is available in the market, including this Compute GST is there, which helps in retrieving all the notices, which helps in giving you the complete. Then Specta GST is there. So these are certain tools for GST which helps you in understanding if there is any pending notice litigation. And of course, logging onto the portal is always the best option where you can check. The reconciliation can happen using these tools. For income tax, it is usually annual compliance with respect to the return filing and all. You can check it using the portal or any software if it is used by the organization. Because it's quite simple, you need to check on to the litigation if it is anything which is pending, any demand from the income tax which is pending, and that is something which you can use for checking the income tax compliances.
Yes, madam. In the internal audit process, whether US citizens or residents of US having the qualification as prescribed under the Act or having qualification in a different country like CA, will be eligible to be appointed as internal auditors, because internal auditors can be any other professional is used there.
Yes, they are eligible because the law says that any other professional, it does not define even the profession that you are into. Even an engineer can be, or a IT engineer can be appointed as the internal auditor of the organization, depending on. And I have seen, internal audit teams where chartered accountant, company secretaries, lawyers, engineers, all are part of the team because everybody checks different angles. Everybody has their own expertise and they give their own perspective of looking at those things. So yes, it is very much possible.
Okay, madam. Is it mandatory for the board to determine the remuneration of internal auditors at the board meeting, or whether board can determine the remuneration by authorizing any one of the director of the board?
Usually, audit committee decides their remuneration, as in the board can give the power to the audit committee and they can decide. It is a board matter. They can decide it either ways. But I believe that all of your all of us are company secretary and we understand this better, that it's a board matter and all board members need to decide it jointly.
Is there any specific tools to audit, like a specific nature of industry, like real estate, pharma? Are there any specified tools which will be more useful or more dynamic in relation to particular sector or industry?
So usually it is more of the process rather than the kind of industry which we use. So in audit, there are various audit softwares which is generic and applies on almost all type of organizations, because it is very tough to have audit tools for a specific, and certain tool providers, they do the customization of the tools as well. If you need anything, they can give you some add-ons to those tools. It is there. But usually idea, teammate, and this audit plus, all these tools are mostly used for conducting the internal audit. ACL is also a very good one.
So, what will be the responsibility the internal auditor is taking while using the AI tools? If anything, technically wrong, or we have been seeing nowadays, the some of the profession judgments have come, that where those judgments never exist in the, there is no legal provision there, but still they have been used by using AI tool, which found a later stage, and lot of legal implications have come on that. So
Yes.
when the internal auditor is using the AI tools, how he will be responsible, or how his professional integrity can be sustained.
It is full responsibility of the auditor while he is using any tool, including the AI. It is his responsibility to make sure that the output which is given, that needs to be validated by the internal auditor. If there is anything which is being quoted over there, auditor need to validate each and every finding which is there by the AI. It is sole responsibility of the auditor to use those tools and find the conclusions, whatever is coming. As I already explained during the session, that hallucination of AI is a bigger challenge. And as an auditor, we need to validate the output before using it, before presenting it to the board. And even recently, there is one case where a person was penalized for, using the chat GPT, and wherein a lot of hallucinated cases were being quoted in it.
So, madam, one last question, I think, because there are all questions from the members have completed. I just myself have got a one doubt. Uh, what will be the probably, because we know that company secretary or chartered accountant or the CA, the nature of the scope and purpose of the internal audit. So, what would be the best module tools which can be we relied upon and which is more easy to operate or helpful for us,
So
whether
this
it is
is very
ChatGPT, Claude,
subjective.
or something else.
You're talking about AI.
AI tool, yes.
AI tool. For AI, I would say the recent release of Claude, it is fantastic for doing some kind of analysis and all. There is another tool called Napkin AI. Napkin AI works very well for creating the dashboards, for creating the PPTs. It gives you a very fantastic, pictures and infographics. You put in your text and it creates the infographic. So it helps you in making the presentation to the board. It gives you the crisp and overview kind of a thing. Napkin AI is there, then Notebook LM, which is by Google. That is also very useful and important, as in very good. ChatGPT paid version is still better. The free one is very basic and it gives almost a similar kind of responses. I would say the Claude is number one. Second is Perplexity is there. That is also it's a aggregation of multiple AI tools. It works with ChatGPT, it works with Claude, it works with, and there's a deep research, for it. That also works pretty well. So if
And
you want
and
to
being
analyze,
and being
please.
nowadays internal audit is ongoing audit. So if, for example, an employee internal audit is in the company, whether he can fix some prompts where he will get the information data on real time basis on happening of the events. Can we accommodate that kind of thing in a tool, madam?
Yes, sir. There are a lot of tools for continuous monitoring as well. There are ready-made tools which I have, displayed on the during my slide as well, that it can be used for it. While you have said that fitting into some prompts, I would suggest and give you a practical thing for all of you as a takeaway, that create a prompt directory, create the best prompts, put it in a notepad or maybe in a word file for certain kind of things, so that every member in your team can reuse those prompts, because every prompt while you are creating it, I'm sure that must be duly researched, and best of it can be put in the directory. That is one of the best thing you can do as of now. And second important thing with respect to use of AI is create a policy on use of AI for your organization. It is must for now. Until unless you have that policy and acceptability of the AI, Otherwise, it becomes so much challenging to fix the responsibility, who has done what. So that's these are the two things which I would say is very, very crucial and important for any one of us.
That is wonderful idea, madam. It really helps actually. That is a key takeaway for this session. I think we have to close now, madam. Thank you very much for your patience, answering all our questions and helping us to understand how these tools and techniques can be used in the internal audit process. So there may be many other audits which we need to do as a company secretary. So these tools not only an internal audit, but we can also simultaneously use for other audits we can conduct. Once we understand how this tool and how the techniques can be used, prompts can be given. Even for secretarial audit, we can start using these AI tools, which will be time saving for us and helping a lot in analyzing even the transactions. Really, it was a wonderful session, madam. Thank you very much. Surbhi ji, आपको कुछ you want to say something and can we close now?
Yes, sir, we can have a formal vote of thanks.
Yeah. Uh, Friends, I hope this session was very enlightening session, and we got understood lot many techniques and tools. How AI, because in the future will be AI only. Anyway, the professionals we have to use AI for the betterment of our clerical work and to reduce our routine works and to more sophisticated works, intellectual works in future. Madam, wonderful session from you. We will be looking forward for many more sessions from you. And whatever you have given, one good thing, thanks to you that you have given your mobile number as well as the mail ID to all our members. It is apparent on screen. So our people may contact, members may contact you as and when they really need your support or help or guidance. Thank you very much, madam. Thank you, Surbhi. Thank you, technical team of ICSI for wonderfully organizing this webinar. And as usual, we will continue this webinar series for this whole year, giving a lot of knowledge dissemination to all our members. Thank you, all participants, for patiently participating and giving us some new thoughts through questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you so much, sir. Thanks a lot for having me here. And it is really interesting to, connect with our own colleagues and members. Thank you so much for inviting me. I hope all of you have gained something and will definitely implement it in your practical working. And in case if you have any questions or queries, I'm available on the email ID which I have and the number. You can please text me anytime. I'll be happy to answer all your questions even in future.
Thank you so much.
Bye,
Thank you,
bye,
sir.
everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.